I think that you different. I mean, there's a huge variety of nationalities, religions. Different religions within particular national environments, and the diaspora is a mix of all of those. But it's a useful term because it lets people know, both within our broad community and outside of the community, that there's a different experience here from the dominant, particularly the dominant white perspective. So I still have this kind of like attachment to those kinds of terms for political reasons, but I absolutely understand, particularly when we've been hearing from a lot of younger people here, that they want to have their kind of specificity recognized, and I think that that is important. But South Asia to me is, I guess, for me very personally, it's Bengali, which isn't true for so many different people, and for me individually, it's actually immigrant Bengali. Like, I think of myself as a British South Asian, not as just a South Asian. I mean, I think, at the moment, in the context of, the last 10 or 15 years, we have to acknowledge that, politically this is being identified with Islam and Muslims and, all of the kind of Islamophobia that comes along with that, I think is contributing to general racism towards South Asians. So, you don't actually have to be a Muslim to suffer Islamophobic racism, because everybody's being identified in that way. So I think that that's important, and I'm sure that that's an important formative context for a lot of people who've grown up with that. There are some people who've probably known only that context, right? Like people who are 20 or so now. And I think we really have to kind of recognize that and get the mainstream to recognize that this is a real issue. These constant iterations of Islamophobia don't just stay specifically towards patriarchal men. They actually affect women. They actually affect people who are not Muslim. They affect people who are racialized. Because in fact, I think it's quite difficult now to separate out. Are we talking about a religion here, or are we talking about a racialization? And I think individually that this is simply the latest form of racialization, rather than anything that's very distinct from that. So it's another stage, another part of the technologies of internally colonizing or externally colonizing a group of people. Individually, I'm not religious and I'm secular, but as I said, I think when we were talking at the panel yesterday, that because of my queerness, I really removed myself from my family culture, and that included the religion, and I just automatically thought the religion was not going to be something I could ever have anything to do with. But in fact, partly because of the Islamophobia in Britain, where I was based until recently, I saw the communities that I knew, which are mostly Bangladeshi, but also to some extent Pakistani ones in Glasgow, where I live, really kind of, I suppose, defensively embracing the religion at first, but then also finding that retrenchment also created the need to kind of talk positively about it. So I've seen it operate as actually a positive resource, again, quite strikingly for young men and women, in slightly different ways. And so that's made me rethink, that, okay, it's not right for me to be religious. I'm a sociologist, I probably have no soul. But it's, like other people take it seriously. Sociology takes religion seriously. And I think it's a resource for people, and it's an important resource, and I think that's really important for us to understand, that embracing a religion as a part of your ethnic and your identity as a minority has become more important rather than less important. I mean, certainly you'll have other people doing the videos here who've been present, and obviously there are lots of community groups that are addressing issues of queerness within the South Asian community, particularly in Toronto, and I think that that's important, and the RPS site will have those resources available. I think that these days, obviously, you can find a lot of stuff, on the internet, but you'll find chat rooms and resources that way. Academically, I guess, like I'm an academic who works in this area, there isn't that much, and I think that's one of the problems. I think it would be, I think one of the disappointing things is that mainstream queer groups, particularly in a city like Toronto, haven't done as much, because they have established resources. They haven't done as much as they could, I think, to provide links to these resources, right, or to mainstream those kinds of issues. And so that may be a difficult thing for young people who are South Asian and struggling with how to reconcile those issues and sexuality. But there are resources out there, and I would point to these community groups that will be listed on the site. I think that's a good starting point.